No relief for regions of China suffering through a scorching heat wave. Large parts of the country have seen a rapid increase in temperatures recently. Now many are bracing for more days of record heat. It's a major threat to the electricity supply, crops and the economy. Some cities have issued heat advisories and steps are being taken to ensure the health and well-being of outdoor workers. More periods of extreme heat is among the effects of climate change it's having on the planet. China is working to cut carbon emissions and plans to reach carbon neutrality by 2060. New standards for vehicles could help it get there. Tougher emission standards go into effect in July. Edward Lehman joins me now. He's the co-founder of Lehman Bush. Great to have you on the program. Tell us more about the aim of these tough new measures and how they work to achieve China's carbon neutrality goals.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I mean, China is cracking down on vehicle emissions, and it will positively, in fact, impact the carbon cutting goals. What they're going to do is it's through stricter emission standards. So it's set to implement upgraded emission standards, as you mentioned, for vehicles nationwide, and that's just starting pretty soon on July the 1st. The Ministry of Ecology and Environment has declared that the production, import, or sale of vehicles that fail to meet these standards will be prohibited. So it pressures automakers, and the introduction of these rules put pressure on the automakers to clear inventories, which is happening now, and there's great price reductions for autos for older models before this deadline. So failing to comply with the national 6B emission standards could result in a ban on production, import, and sales. And they're striving for carbon neutrality. That's what you talked about earlier, which is by 2060. And this is a step forward. So China's decision to enforce tougher emission standards aligns with its commitment to carbon neutrality. By curbing vehicle emission, China aims to reduce its carbon footprint and continue to its global climate goals. There's another thing that's interesting that's been added on here is real driving emissions tests. So one notable change has been upgraded standards is the inclusion of real driving emission tests, which measures emissions while vehicles are driven on the road and not in some kind of scientific sort of setting off-road. This addition ensures that vehicles meet emissions requirements in real-world scenarios going beyond laboratory tests. The impact on the EV market will be the implementation of these emission standards could be a significant impact on the electric vehicle market as automakers strive to meet new rules, and the demand for EVs may surge, promoting the growth in the EV industry.
So what does that mean for companies? I mean, how much time do they have to get themselves organized? And if they've got this stack of inventory that isn't going to pass these new standards, what happens to those cars? How do companies try and recover from that?
Okay, so I think people need to know that the implementation's coming in on July the 1st. Once it comes in on July the 1st, there's going to be a grace period for them to be able to actually implement these laws, policies, and regulations. Is different than in the United States or in the European Union, where it happens by stare decisis or case law, where automatically that must happen precisely on that date. And there will be a kind of a rollout period in which they're going to be able to implement that policy. So it's not going to be as strict as you might see in the United States or other parts of the world. And what's happened is that there's been a tremendous amount of discounting that's gone on with regards to the inventory that's in place, and they will be able to drive those cars with those inventories in place while they're implementing these plans. So they're setting, as China often does, they're setting these goals and standards. And what Wayne Gretzky said, I guess, is you don't skate to where the puck is, but you skate to where you think the puck is going to be. And so that's what China is doing with trying to curb emissions, carbon emissions. They're trying to skate to where the puck is going to be. They know they need to do it in the auto industry, and they're doing these laws, policies, and regulations to do it. But they're also flexible enough, and they're even having people like us that are weighing in on these things while these laws, policies, and regulations are being put in place.
And what about the EV? What about the EV market? Is China's market ready to go in terms of electric vehicles? I mean, will there be enough for people to buy? I'm sure there's enough, but can people afford these cars? I mean, here in the US, it seems still out of reach for most people. So how does China's goals match the realistic ideas and situations of the everyday person in China?
Yeah, what we're seeing is, again, I mean, living in a place like I do in Beijing, I mean, they limit the number of cars that can come onto the roads each month. So there's this kind of endless supply of people, not endless, but just about, that would like to come and buy automobiles, but they can't do it because they have to, have the license plate to be able to get on the roads. What I think the consumer is seeing now is massive discounts in the EV industry, so almost half price with regards to trying to clear the inventory. So I think it's a great opportunity. The issue still remains with the regulations to be able to purchase those. So it's not like in the United States where you just go out, you want to buy a car, you go and do it, and you get your license plate. I mean, here you need to be able to have permission to be able to purchase the automobile. And so that kind of is a bottleneck. But do I see that the future of the EV industry here is positive? Yes, certainly. I mean, it's one of the key places in the world and will continue to be.
All right, Edward Lehman, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Sally.